prove the following. By default rule, everything that a supplier incurs before the goods are supplied to the recipient. By default rule, you need not read anything. Everything is a part of transaction value. Now supposing as a lawyer you are confronted with an invoice of 10 lakh rupees. And you know this trade, because if you don't know the trade, you cannot give opinions. Tax laws, nobody can have opinion until you know the industry. तो फैक्ट्स आपको लिखने हैं ना पहले. मिस्टर पाटिल ने मुझसे बताया था कि फैक्ट्स आपको मास्टर करने हैं, हर नए केस के हर बारी नए करने हैं, हर नया बारी लॉ पढ़ना है आपको. फिर को देखना भी आपने क्या किया है धंधा बताइए. I gave you the example of DCM Engineering versus State of Andhra Pradesh, where the freight was mentioned separately on the invoice. But Supreme Court said your contract was therefore, sir, so notwithstanding you mentioned freight on invoice, please pay tax. So if you go through trial balance, pick up random 3, 4, 5 invoices of such nature, go through trial balance, whether late fee हुई है, interest हुई है, or any other expense reimbursement. In that case, you are not acting as a job to incur the expenditure. You are in a transaction of supply of goods. And wherever you have such contracts where the valuation is subject to certain things, remember this valuation is provisional. That is why interest on tax shall relate back to the original invoice. Only that provisional invoice shall become final after you pay the interest. Then we have the 15.4, wherever it cannot be determined, its value can be prescribed, and then comes last 15.5, notwithstanding. Remember, there are two kinds of negative clauses, notwithstanding or no. Notwithstanding is much more powerful than no, but both operate on independent tangents. We discussed on the first day of this notwithstanding and no. All of you remember meaning? Notwithstanding shall overpower, but you have to read notwithstanding clause carefully. This relates to only subsection 1, that is transaction value, or subsection 4, where it is not possible to determine the value of goods. It doesn't operate to any other subsection. It only operates qua subsection 1 or subsection 4 of section 15. If the government notifies any value, no question asked. So, do you have to still go through controlled commodities, steel, cement, sugar, grains? The so many notifications by the government का ये rate होगा, वो rate होगा. Ask your client, is there any notification like this? Then you have to pay tax on that. Your transaction value is not okay. If it's high, it's okay. It cannot be lower than the notified value. And this is the effect of section 14.1, section 14 to Customs Act, which deals with tariff values and assessor value or transaction values. So they have incorporated this in 15.4. Well, buddies, we touched section 16 today for 20 minutes. We'll spend full day tomorrow on different
kinds of discounts.
Oh, okay. Now, see, whatever discount, thank you, sir. Whatever discount you given an invoice, there is no need to clarify those discounts. Now, if you read the literal meaning of subsection 2, clause B, it says pre-supply discounts. If there is no contract in writing, or the general trade price list on which certain discounts are mentioned, we have no issues. But supposing those discounts are other than the discounts mentioned on the trade discount, cash discount, quantity discount, ये सारे तरह के discount आपको देते हैं. But notwithstanding any discount, your credit notes must be in terms of section 34. That is post-supply discounts. For post-supply discounts, still you have to convince it was agreed in pre-supply stage. The literal meaning है, I'm not of this view. Courts are not of this view. But court never interpreted this kind of GST clause. Court were interpreting sale price section 2M of Central Sales Tax Act. They were not interpreting this clause. But the underlying logic is same. If you go to 34, we can read now a little more carefully. Where one or more tax invoices have been issued. The word perfect tense English is have been. That is something has already happened. Now you're doing a post-mortem kind of thing on this issue. for supply of any goods or services or both, so credit note applies to all three transactions, goods or services or composite supplies or first contract services. And the taxable value of tax charged in that tax one is found to exceed the taxable value. So what is the first condition? Where tax charged in that tax invoice is found to exceed the taxable value. The first reason where a credit note can be issued, very rarely done. Tax payable in respect of such supply or where the goods supplied are returned by the recipient. Goods have to be returned. How will you return the goods? Necessarily you have to reverse input tax credit when you return the goods. You see? It's implied. The law need not write it. Only then you will be able to reduce your tax liability. Is the reverse when you issue a credit note, when you give discount, or since you have to issue credit note when you return the goods. Credit note can be issued only by supplier, not by the recipient. Only by, because he issues the tax invoice. The recipient doesn't issue the tax invoice. And last one is far better, or where the goods or services both supplied are found to be in deficient. Now this is where the lot of problems are happening in export of services. I know I have an opinion note from a leading law firm who don't deal in GST. Leading means India's leading law firm. I don't know what is this transaction, so I can't comment on transaction. They showed export of legal services worth 23 crores, 23.7 crores in 1 year. A lot of work done for some American company. Now the American company says, we will not pay you. Your services were deficient or whatever. 1 year is over. Now they have come out with the situation, okay, sir, what do you do? Refund has been taken. Full refund. But payment has not come.
रिफंड कैसे आ गया उसके पास?
उसकी जो फॉरेन करेंसी जो पेमेंट है उस पर रिफंड ले लिया ना, 10 करोड़ 12 करोड़ आई पे ले लिया।
कितना आ गया?
हाँ जितना ऑब्वियसली सारे नहीं ना, 12 करोड़ पे उनको नहीं उनको लेना है। अब वो 1 साल में हमने जहाँ से एक्सटेंशन भी ली थी, एक्सटेंशन लेके आप ले लो। अब वो दे आर refused to make payment. Now we gave them this suggestion, rather they come up with suggestion, okay, Mr. Verma, whatever is 34, one sub, the third reason, deficient services. I said in law, how do you prove deficient services? That happened 1 year ago, and you have no correspondence exchange. And those things have been done. It's very, very difficult. So in case of services to find deficiency, it's a very difficult. For example, medical service deficient. उसने आपको दवाई आपके साथ कम हो गया, कोई डेफिशिएंसी सर्टिफिकेट। अब हम तो लिखते हैं these are our views. Right होते। So in case of goods it's possible. But I would say that before you invoke this third reason for 34(1) issue credit notes for deficiency in goods, you must build up a correspondence. Collateral evidence is a must. Simply you have issue a credit note, no. And each credit note has to be linked to a tax invoice. That's the requirement of law. Each credit note has to be linked to a particular tax invoice. आप उस tax invoice में आपने क्या भेजा था, वो क्या नहीं था, आपका नहीं पता. You put what credit which you sold, you bought and sold. You are not the manufacturer of goods. And supposing the buyer knew, the supplier disclosed they are not the manufacturer, they are only importing and selling it to you. Your liability for deficiency can exist, but can you say goods were deficient? राहुल ने बोला जी मुझे ऐसे काले माइक चाहिए ये सर्टिफिकेशन के, मैंने इम्पोर्ट करके आपको दे दी, पैसे पेमेंट कंप्लीट. So this third reason for deficiency is a bit dicey, but I think for all other discounts, section 34 can cover. Second reason. But again you have to prove, otherwise you are back to 1552. So 34(1) is not a panacea for issuing all kind of credit notes. Tomorrow there will be question. I'm not discussing financial credit notes, we have no issues. Financial credit note में GST transfer नहीं करते. We are talking of circular ना financial credit note में. There is circular of financial credit notes. So I'm not bothered about financial credit notes. तो आपकी payment address करते हैं. But where you have to return the GST amount or claim the GST return back. अब उसमें एक और प्रॉब्लम है. GST return can be claimed if Input tax is reversed, right? Supposing उस बंदे को input tax मिलता ही नहीं, कहाँ से reverse करेगा वो? It's a big question mark. Law में कोई provision नहीं इसमें क्या होगा? I mean, I have never read a provision like this in GST rules of law, where the buyer is the transaction not on B2B, it's a B2C. Can we say I cannot issue credit note and claim liability? I can. Where is the bar? But what is the word and? How do we satisfy that the buyer reversing the input tax credit? So section 15 has to be read with section 34 if you are giving post-supply credit notes. But in my view, all discounts are possible, provided they were agreed at pre-supply stage or at the time of delivery. It's better to make a circular letter or sign an agreement, whatever you want to sign, is possible. Because discounts are not, it's not cash discount mentioned like we had in sale price definition, but cash discount also Supreme Court interpreted to be including trade discount. Supreme Court's definition, but they were not interpreting this kind of clause. I'm only adding that when we read GST law, all other VAT regime judgments should be discounted to the language used here in GST law. We should not straight away go to court and say, "Hamara mil gaya, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya." Because once you get a wrong law made in a high court, you trouble everybody. Till then, actually, the situation is chaotic. Confusion तो है ना? अब हाई कोर्ट से ये नहीं मिलता, अब क्या करेंगे उसके बाद? कुछ नहीं करते. So whenever we are, any one of us approaches high court by a writ petition, we should be very careful that we are not getting a wrong law made for the revenue or for the gain. When judges know that much, what we teach them. Like Mr. Bhatia said, judges say, I'm in trouble, not both of you. Problem तो मेरे को है. I am on he's on trial, not us. हमारे को पैसे मिले, रेवेन्यू वालों को पैसे मिले, हमारे को पैसे मिले. उसको सैलरी मिली, उसको और पैसे नहीं मिले. So, but still section 34 we discuss when we come to section 16 more. Let's come to section 16. Touch it today. Go back to definition once again. We start with 259, 2 subsection 59 CGST. Input means what does not in services, and they have also used the word input, not inputs. The word used is input. Input service separately defined. The service distributor we are not considering at present. 52. Input tax in relation to integrated IGST tax payable under section subsection 3 or 4 of section 9, that is reverse charge, etc. Reverse or advance tax. Tax payable on provisions of 5 of IGST and again reverse charge or advance tax खत्म कर दिया इन्होंने भी. Tax payable under provisions of section 3 and 4 section 7 of unit same thing, but does not include the tax paid under any composition liability. Like in VAT, you cannot claim it. Right? Let's go further. Input tax credit means on the tax invoice. It has some serious consequences that are coming up, where a supplier issued an invoice 5%, item was 18%. What is mentioned on the invoice, that is the only eligibility. It could be wrong or right. So input tax credit, that's why they defined what is input tax credit, what is mentioned on the tax invoice. If supplier has charged a wrong tax, this is his funeral, not your funeral. You will get only 5%, whereas you will pay 18%. So never, as lawyers or chartered accountants, follow input tax for output tax liabilities. You will get 5%. You will get 18%. Yes. It's like 41D. बस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट 12.5%. मैंने दिल्ली में केस किया था कार वालों का. पेट्रोलियम पे कहते हैं कि हम तो नहीं देंगे. क्यों नहीं दोगे? बस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है मेरा 12.5 मैंने दिया. मेरा इनपुट टैक्स काट लो. I think SK Kaushik and the bench clearly said. So input tax is very mentioned on tax invoice. So as lawyers and CAs, if at all we do this compliance work, sometimes you should sit down with your client and go through the input expenses part at a time. Especially in IT industry, chemicals, there are a lot of problems, more problems. And supply to government railways. There are a lot of input tax, output tax issues. So input tax credit is what is mentioned on tax advice. Output tax is, remember the word chargeable. I told you the meaning. It's not charged. It is, the output tax definition says tax chargeable. That is what is right tax you are charged on output tax, not based on what you have purchased. उसको कॉपी मार के 5% करते हैं. No. You have to sit down. If your client is dealing with single business, spend time with him. उसकी एक बार उसको सारी एक्टिविटीज नोट डाउन करोगे तो नोट बना के दे दो, तुम्हारी जान क्या है. अगर मल्टी एक्टिविटीज है तो उसके मल्टीपल प्रॉब्लम्स भी. So the answer that you have all the right as stated by member sir. Mr. Bhatt, you don't have to seek any permission, especially when Mr. Bhatia is sitting. Because he loves all these younger people. At times he might say कि आपकी कोई जरूरत नहीं है, आप बाकी को आने. Okay. Input tax credit is the soul of GST regime. As professionals, you must know, never take a one-side view कि हमारे क्लाइंट को मिलना चाहिए. उस जबरदस्ती में you will lead your client to suicide also. It is on gross value, it's not income tax. It's on gross value of supply. Value of supply means including all inclusion mentioned in section 15(3). 18-28% और सेस 43% जो भी हो सकता है. तो जीएसटी जब आप इनपुट टैक्स देखते हैं तो आपको आपकी नजरें बहुत प्यारी होनी चाहिए, लेने में भी देने में भी. Lot of judgments came initially. Input tax is a vested right. That is nobody can take away. I disagree with this view. Now, there are 7 Supreme Court judgments in last 1 year where they have repeated input tax is a concession, not a right. The vested right judgments were on a different platform. सेंट्रल एक्साइज में थी, अलग इशू थे उनमें. लेकिन अभी रिसेंटली एमआईडी ऑटोमोबाइल मद्रास हाईकोर्ट जजमेंट सुप्रीम कोर्ट गई थी, उन्हें बोला कि नो, इट्स अ कंसेशन. वंस इट्स अ कंसेशन, लाइक रिफंड इज आल्सो अ कंसेशन. रिफंड आई कैन से वेस्टेड राइट, मेरा पैसा वापस करो. कहते नहीं सर 2 साल में ले लो तो बोला वो टाइम पास. मोदी मिल्स के केस में 9 जनवरी बेंच में इशू उठाया गया था. इट्स माई मनी, वेयर इज द बार. कहते नो, इट्स नॉट योर मनी. State is giving you input tax credit refund or a tax credit refund subject to certain conditions. The concession given to you. But TDS is your money. There is no bar. TDS में कोई limitation नहीं. That's the money you deposit from your account. That money you are not buying on your purchases. So my personal view is ITC is not a vested right. Notwithstanding what was written in Delhi High Court Brand Equity. If the Delhi High Court judgment, neither here nor there. But when Supreme Court says this is not a vested right, it's a concession given by the state, you have to satisfy all the conditions for ITC. Section 16 is the substantial provision. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 21 are machinery provision. यहाँ मिलेगा, यहाँ नहीं मिलेगा. But section 16 we have to master all the 4 subsections. सारी definition जो भी word लिखे हैं, सारी definition हम कर चुके हैं इसमें. So wherever you have any issue, please let me know. We will repeat the definition again. Marginal heading is eligibility and conditions for taking input tax credit. I told you marginal heading is not a very strong tool for interpretation, but it's a pointer to what legislature intended to do in a particular provision. Every registered person, who is a registered person, who has a certificate registration under section 25. Till he gets that, he doesn't become a registered person. He may be required to be registered. You know, who is a taxable person? Registered or required to be registered? अब required to be registered, उसकी लाइब्रेरी तब बनेगी जब वो रजिस्टर बनेगा. उससे पहले उसको सेक्शन 18 में कुछ मिलता है, provided that 30 days limitation available to you. But if you are not registered, ITC is not available to you, subject to section 18. Right? So only registered person are entitled to input tax credit. Not required to be. हमने 6 महीने बाद लिया था तो 6 महीने का ITC आपको नहीं मिलेगा. You are not registered at that time. Supposing somebody raids you and you have all the tax advices with you, but tax advices were issued when you didn't have GST number. Tax advice है आपके पास, उसमें tax भी लिखा है, GST number नहीं. So section 31 requirements are not satisfied. Tax advice is invalid. So no portion of any input tax credit available to you. Subject to such conditions and restrictions That's why I tell you ITC is a concession. It's not a vested right. The law itself makes it clear. Subject to such conditions and restrictions. So we know the meaning of subject to. Whatever is written on input tax credit in this book, subject to includes, it's all pervasive, includes everything what is written here about input tax credit. That is the meaning of subject to, because this is in a substantial provision dealing with opening section of this chapter is input tax credit. Subject to condition which has been prescribed. What is prescribed? Notifications, rules. अगर उसमें कहीं कोई प्रॉब्लम है आपको रूल देखने, इसके रूल हम करेंगे सारे. And in the manner specified in section 49, section 49 tells you how will you utilize ITC. CGST बची, CGST जो भी प्रोसीजर आपको ऑटोमेटिक आता है ना, तो आपको करना नहीं होता है. आप आते हैं पहले नहीं आते. वो बहुत जरूरी है कि कानून से जो आपको इनपुट टैक्स मिल रहा है वो तो ले लो आप. उसको यूटिलाइजेशन भी आप उसी तरीके से करेंगे जो सेक्शन 49 में लिखा है. I told you a case, a bill of entry came in Haryana. Did you audit that company? वो दिल्ली में क्लेम कर दी. बहुत 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 ऐसा. She is my associate lawyer. मैं तुम्हारे इनका आगे किया. I tell you वहाँ पे उससे पूछ सकते. और जो दिल्ली में टैक्स दिए चलो वहाँ का आगे क्लेम कर लो. No. For the simple reason, your GST is PAN based. Each state is a distinct person. Your company may be one, but for GST purposes you are 30 companies. You are registered everywhere. ITC आपको उसके मिलेगा जो आपने GST नंबर है, वरना नहीं मिलता. Right?
Sir, you have a title number and you have the stop on that page.
वो भी सारे करेंगे. ये शुरुआत है. लॉ इतना सिंपल नहीं होता ना. लॉ इतना सिंपल हो तो हिंदुस्तान में बहुत लॉयर्स हैं, हम भूखे मर जाएं. Be entitled to take credit of input tax charged on any supply of goods or services opposed to him. So what 16(1) tells you? It only gives you an entitlement. The word entitlement, taking, credit, availment, utilization, all five have different meaning in Supreme Court terminology in VAT regimes. So 16(1) only entitles you, is subject to such conditions as may be prescribed or notified. A registered tax person is eligible to be entitled to input tax credit on the supply of goods or services supplied to him in the course or furtherance of business. And the said amount shall be credited to electronic credit ledger of such person. तो 16(1) में अवेलमेंट यूटिलाइजेशन कुछ नहीं है. आप एंटाइटल हो तो आपके इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट ledger में पैसा डाल देंगे. उसके बाद सेक्शन 49 ऑपरेट्स. हाउ विल यू यूटिलाइज दिस क्रेडिट? So 16(1) has no connection with your availment or utilization. It only talks of entitlement. क्या entitlement है? आपका रजिस्टर्ड टैक्सेबल पर्सन हो, आपको गुड्स और सर्विसेज सप्लाई हो, किस लिए हो? In the course of business or furtherance of business. If you pick up a balance sheet of a client and go through what assets he has purchased, you will easily know how much input tax credit is claimed wrongly. More or less everybody has claimed. Motor car, insurance, service, car, truck, सब पे ले. Trial balance sheet for input tax credit must be gone through. Not this. Do it will be. I don't bother about it. The only function of this return is only to create mismatch. These returns do not give you any statutory right to claim input tax credit. It has no link with 16(1) or 16(2). It only says आपने उससे माल खरीदा था, आपने कंफर्म किया आपने उससे माल खरीदा. Input tax credit आपने क्या खरीदा? Whether that acquisition of goods or services or both was in the course of your business, जो आपकी main activity है, or in furtherance of your business, अपने business बढ़ाने के लिए उसको लिया. So 16(1) gives you entitlement, and if you are entitled, जो आपका इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट ledger उसमें वो क्रेडिट हो जाएगा. अब क्लियर? 16(1) तक अवेलमेंट यूटिलाइजेशन कोई लेने देना नहीं है, बिल्कुल कुछ नहीं. आपके इलेक्ट्रॉनिक जैसे डीबी पासबुक में आपकी एंट्री आ गई, उसको आपने किसको बेचना है वो बात का बात है, वो एक अलग प्रोसेस है. किसको बेच सकते हैं, किसको नहीं बेच सकते आप. 16.2. We'll do 16.2 and finish today. Notwithstanding anything contained in this section. So it's a non-obstante clause to begin with. Notwithstanding anything contained in this section, that is 16.2 refers to only section 16. It has no connection with any other chapter or provision of the Act. It's a notwithstanding clause. No registered person. So one more negative thing. No registered person shall be entitled. So subsection 2 is clarifying subsection 1. So subsection uses the word entitled. 62 say, notwithstanding contained in this section, including subsection 1, no registered person shall be entitled to the credit of any input as credit. Credit where? In the electronic credit ledger. In respect to the supply of goods or services or both to him, unless. Imagine in 2 lines how many imperative words have been used. Notwithstanding can be contained in this section. So section 1, 3, subsection 4 are seemingly overpowered by subsection 2 language. Then it suddenly says no credit. Again negative clause. It could have been differently worded also, but lawmakers use this very imperative language to convey a clear meaning. No registered person shall be entitled to take credit of any input tax in respect of any supply goods or both, unless he is in possession of tax invoice or debit note issued by supplier registered under this act or such other tax paying documents as may be prescribed. So section 34 subsection 2 deals with debit notes, can be done only by supplier or a tax invoice. Now, what does this subclause A means? If we deeply go into it, if I am doing an audit, I'll catch you. If subsection 1 uses the word entitled, subsection 2 also uses the word entitled, no registered shall be entitled to take credit. Supposing you don't have a tax invoice when you take credit, what happens? Can you take? Answer is no. You cannot take. Perform invoice has no meaning. Email invoicing has no meaning. Tax invoice means I can add the word original. Court will add.
Digital possession.
इनवाइस ओरिजिनल इनवाइस आप कार वालों के समय क्या होते हैं पेमेंट होगी उनका इनवाइस आ जाता है फोटोकॉपी परफॉर्मा इनवाइस आई नो मेनी कार डीलर हैव टेकन क्रेडिट फॉर दिस एंड नाउ दे आर कॉट नाउ व्हाट इज द कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस इफ यू टेक इज इट इर्रेगुलर और इज इलीगल I will not say this is irregular, this is illegal. So this is a condition to claim money from the government, and it is operating through a non-obstante clause and a double negative clause. Therefore, you must ensure on that day when the money is given to a credit ledger. Now supposing it's given online, आपकी कोई गलती नहीं है, but the input as credit is only provisional. It is never final based on these returns. You are only given an entitlement to adjust your output tax liability against this, whatever is matching into a duty, whatever you are doing. It is still our duty to ensure that whatever has been given credit to electronic credit ledger, we have tax invoices. Do a random checking. Be surprised, what will you get? होंगे ही नहीं, पेमेंट हो गई, बिल घूम गए, कहीं उधर हो गए. You have to have, right? I remember जो फर्स्ट पॉइंट हम गेट करते थे, फर्स्ट पॉइंट गुड्स के इनवाइस में कितने झगड़े होते ही नहीं थे. One of the recent cases I tell you, somebody has claimed a transitional credit of 17 crore rupees, big company. 3 साल के इनवाइस है उनके पास. 1 साल में इट्स नॉट योर मैटर. 1 साल में उन्होंने लिखा है कि हमारे आग लग गई. अब वो जो असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर है उनका बाप है, उसने जो कमर उनको सब चिट्ठियां लिखी. आज 2 महीने हो गए, कोई वहां से जवाब नहीं आया. अब उनको सामने भेजे उनको सेकंड. So if you were to claim transitional credit in section 140, you were to fulfill the conditions. I don't think any court can give you relief if you don't satisfy the conditions. Any court should give rather. So therefore, you must have a tax invoice in the original word is not written, but it presumes the original in original, in your name, before you are entitled to credit. Just go for 2FP, don't go for this. Invoice आपके पास होना चाहिए उससे. Now can we say that once there is no mismatch in the returns, load it online, can we say we don't have to have a tax invoice? No, you must have tax invoice. All our transactions are always matched. जो collusion sale है उनमें कोई भी mismatch होता ही नहीं. 100% पैसे तक मिलेंगे उसमें. और 10 दिन से पहले रिटर्न फाइल होंगी वो. अगर 10 दिन में दूसरे दिन में फाइल हो जाएगी. इनमें के बीच झगड़ा चल रहा है. तो बैंक का मानते हैं लोग, मानते नहीं आप. लेकिन होने चाहिए. इनको टैक्स टर्मिनल
बैंक ईमेल्स यू ऑल द इनवॉइस
कर देते हैं, वैसे बैंक भी दे देते हैं इनवॉइस.
कई बार तो 2-2 रुपए की इनवॉइस करते हैं
उसमें देखो ना टैक्स इनवॉइस क्या लिखा है. और such other tax paying document has been prescribed. So government has to prescribe this document. Otherwise courts have no reason to give it. You are agree? They are not. The details of the invoice or debit note referred in class A has been furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supply. The such details have been communicated to the recipient of such invoice or debit note in the manner specified. Now this is 2A2B. आपने किसी 10 लाख का माल खरीदा, 25 इनवॉइस थे. उसने रिटर्न भरी, उसमें 20 इनवॉइस है, 5 इनवॉइस आपको क्रेडिट मिल ही नहीं सकता. अब ये रूल 36(4) इसका आपको एक लेना देना नहीं. You cannot get invoice. You will get input tax credit, and this has been confirmed by Supreme Court in Bharti Airtel. This amendment came after Bharti Airtel judgment. So बोला कि no. Now you have a system which is everything is online, so your service tax, ये judgment सारी बकवास है, ये बकवास करे इसका हमारा कोई लेना देना नहीं. So that is supposing. Now what happens? What is the accounting of this? आपने 25 इनवॉइस 10 लाख पे उसको लेटर पे इनपुट टेस्ट करें, राइट. उन्होंने आपने कस्टमर क्रेडिट किया, जीएसटी को डेबिट कर दिया 10 लाख रुपए से, तो आपके हिसाब से तो आईटी टैक्स का 10 लाख बनता है. यू कैन नॉट टेक क्रेडिट बेस्ड ऑन दिस, राइट. तो आप जीएसटी कम है जो भी अमाउंट उसको फॉलो करना है. उसके लिए 16(4) की लिमिटेशन नहीं है. 16(4) की लिमिटेशन मिसमैच के केसेस के लिए नहीं है. Whenever you are matched in that period, you can claim the input tax credit. Otherwise, जितने arbitration cases and disputes हैं, they will all go for a 6. मिलेंगे ही नहीं कभी. That is why 16(4) की limitation courts have held is not applicable to these kind of disputes. मैंने कभी काम किया नहीं. रेटिफिकेशन कैसे होता है राहुल बताएगा तो कैसे कैसे रेटिफिकेशन होता है. मैंने तो कभी देखे भी नहीं आते.
सर ये तो पोर्टल का पहले ग्लिच है कि आपको रेज अ टिकट, दिस इज द बेसिक सॉल्यूशन. उन्होंने भरा है तो पहले आप उसका भी उनका प्रूफ, तो दिस इज थिंग व्हिच इज अ प्रोसीजरल गैप व्हिच यू हैव टू स्पीक टू योर जुडिशियल ऑफिसर. पहले आप
बिना पैसे के मत करना, बहुत तक आने पड़ती है ना करने को. हाँ कभी बोलोगे क्लाइंट फ्री में फिर आपको खुद करा ले, पिछली लेके चले, खुद जाके धक्के खाओ, हम नहीं कर सकते.
ये जो है ये बहुत काफी बड़ी फिल्म से आया है अमेंडमेंट इफेक्टिव हो डबल ए. What happens to the earlier cases? See, it's not explanatory. It's the addition that's made.
I think this can be taken. Court will decide if it's taken procedure, it will read back. If a substantive इससे पहले इसका कोई लाभ नहीं था. लेकिन भारतीय टेल में पॉइंट रेज हुआ था ना, चंद्रू ने क्या लिखा, इट्स अ फेलिशियस आर्गुमेंट. आप सर्विस टैक्स नहीं करते, आपके क्लाइंट को पता नहीं क्या होता है. अरे पॉइंट 39(4) पे लिया गया था ये पॉइंट.
पहले जो था वो ये कि उसने पे कर दिया
वो अभी भी है, वो अभी भी है.
that is the rule right.
What I'm saying is कि जो amendment 19 से हुई है, I think this can be taken to be a kind of procedural amendment. I don't know. We have not argued this matter at present. If it's procedural, it will read back. If the substantive is applicable from that उससे पहले भी रहा तो फिर भी वही रहना.
वही रहना है. प्रॉब्लम
आपकी सिर्फ जो आपने क्लेम किए हैं उसमें उसका कॉन्सिक्वेंस हो सकता है थोड़ा.
देयर इज अ डिफरेंस. जब सप्लायर ने पे कर दिया तो मेरे पास फ्री भी वो दे सकता है मुझे. GST 1 पुरानी I'm talking about अक्टूबर 2019 से पहले वाले के लिए, तो हमने कहा कि इसे पे तो कर दिया, यहाँ पर आ गया। अब उसे मेरे बिल पे पे किया नहीं किया, दैट इज अ क्वेश्चन मार्क। बट डबल ए आते ही मुझे पता लग गया मेरे बिल पे किया नहीं किया।
See, in a sale contract, each invoice is a separate contract. So Supreme Court very clear, do can't generalize कि उसने क्या दिया है. That is why the returns are there for after solar unit supply. Mechanism is such. आपको सारे बिल्स को मेंशन करने हैं टैक्स इनवॉइस से. Only in case of retail invoices they can mention all together.
Let us take one point here, but I know not coming in it.
Any don't worry, take time. It's a good issue.
Point is that lot of officers says कि जी आप 2A to B में नहीं आ रहा, 2A में नहीं आ रहा। 3 अक्टूबर पूरी मची है। तो डेट नंबर इज तो नंबर नहीं इस रिटर्न फाइल कर रहा है तो उससे उसका टैक्सेस पेड है, उसके बियॉन्ड में उसके अंदर नहीं जा सकता। इस आर्गुमेंट का क्या पोजीशन है? मैं ये पूछ रहा हूं। नहीं बट
अगर उसके अगर कर रहा हूँ बोलेंगे आपका इनपुट है 5 लाख रुपए, उससे पेमेंट करिए 50 करोड़ रुपए, आपका बिल 5 लाख रुपए है। Notwithstanding this amendment, the earlier impression was the same. ये भारतीय जाल में पॉइंट लिया गया था। If you read that 163 page judgment, ये पॉइंट लिए गए थे सुप्रीम कोर्ट ओवर।
But what I am trying to say is that I am fulfilling 16(2). Totally I am fulfilling 16(2). उसने पे कर दिया।
You are not fulfilling. How will one day be paid for supply? You are not sure whether your bills are mentioned or not. On the 5 crore, whether your 5 lakh is included, how do you prove? See, the problem is the whole thing is onus is upon the recipient, not on supplier. This is the law we should have challenged in courts. Our bar should have challenged. Okay, what is this? Buyer has to prove. Supplier बाकी बाकी उसको आपको. You have to prove your claim. How do you prove this? Your baby. Litigation करो. तभी तो क्लास लेते हैं. और ऐसे क्वेश्चन ना के लाओ. और डिबेट करेंगे इसके ऊपर. Yes. आपका नंबर दिखा दिया, आपके 25 बिल थे, आपका नंबर दिखा दिया। अगर आपके नंबर के आगे पूरी टर्नओवर भी है तो परहैप्स वी कैन मेक आउट अ उसमें आपका नंबर है। लेट अस से कि आपके उससे 50 उसके रिसीपिएंट उसका आपका नंबर भी है, और उसमें कितनी टर्नओवर टैक्स दिया आपका है?
GST नहीं वाइज होगा सर, इनवॉइस
Once again,
ये रिप्लाई
अक्टूबर 19 से पहले GST 2A मिसमैच की कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। It is not legal. It cannot be enforced by the department. We have various judgments of IDT era. We have various judgments of GST of Honorable Gujarat Court speaks about that this is not legal. ITC has to be checked with reference to all these sections subject to all other conditions. Amendment is applicable only from 18th October 2018. It itself speaks that 2A is only to facilitate you to check whether it is IC cannot be linked with GSTR 2A for 17-18, 18-19 and 19-20 till September 2019.
So that's what I'm saying. If it is taken to the procedural, it will make time. If it is taken to substantive, that is from that day. But 18 press release has no connection with 2019. There are no meaning for anybody. That law was not existing at that time. But I personally think it's a procedure. It's not substantive. It's only one of the requirement of law. It's not a condition as such. 140 में क्या था? हम कहते थे वो टाइम लिमिटेशन की कंडीशन है। कोर्ट कहते थे नहीं है, कुछ कोर्ट वाला कंडीशन है, कोई देखा नहीं, बाकी तो लिमिटेशन थी। So this is a definitely a document evidence. Normally should be have to be a procedure. Normally, but in view of the scheme of the act, that court take view like Abhishek says, तुमने बोला कि it cannot be taken. That Gujarat High Court judgment not relevant in the कहाँ relevant है? अब बड़े हाई कोर्ट से बड़ा कुछ बोला, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने सारा उल्टा पुल्टा कर दिया तो क्या करेंगे? The question about the GST law is, it's a central act. but still we continue to believe that judgment of High Court are limited to the jurisdiction High Courts. Whereas there are Supreme Court rulings, the central enactment interpreted by Supreme Court is applicable everywhere. But कोई High Court मानता नहीं. मैंने वो केस ने केस में लिया था हमने. ऐसे नोटिस के High Court said, but I मेरा व्यू okay. He has received the goods or services for पढ़ना बहुत जरूरी है before we discuss this. For the purposes of this clause, so this explanation is only for the subclause B. It shall be deemed that the registered person has received the goods or as the case may be services, where the goods are delivered by the supplier to recipient on any other person on the direction of such a person, where acting as an agent or otherwise before or during movement of either by way of transfer document title. Is section 10 IGST is not very relevant here. Where the services are provided by supplier to any person on the direction on account of such a person. He has received again, it's a perfect tense. The grammatically English is very imperative है. जो जितने भी ये केस लोग पकड़े गए वो इसी कंडीशन पकड़े गए. The goods were never delivered, therefore the recipient never received the goods. And none of these fellows have been able to prove they received the goods, except saying हमने payment की, हमारा stock ledger देख लो, ये देख लो, वो देख लो. Well, again, whenever you take this argument, these are only collateral evidences. Tax invoice or your books have no connection with the transaction. आप कहते हैं बोले हमारे पास सी फॉर्म है जी. गुड्स बाहर गए थे अलर्ट दिखा है ही. स्टॉक ट्रांसफर है जी एफ फॉर्म है. वो 100 रुपए के ब्याज से खरीदे हुए थे. कितने के हम लोगों ने किए. So a transaction has to be proved, and the law says the goods or services should have been received by the